This story explores mature emotional themes like loneliness, unexpected connection, and second chances. It contains no explicit content, but viewer discretion is advised. Title: The delivery boy didn't deliver pizza, but his role it was supposed to be a simple Friday night. Pizza. A quiet movie. Maybe a glass of wine if I was feeling bold. I wasn't expecting anything more, especially not a knock at the door that would change everything. I'd been in that apartment for 3 months. Moved in after the breakup, after the job shift, after the kind of emotional unraveling no one warns you about in your 20s. It wasn't dramatic, just empty. Silent. So I ordered pizza. Thin crust, no cheese, extra garlic. My usual. But when I opened the door, there was no pizza. Just him. A guy with rain-damp hair curling slightly over his forehead, holding a single, carefully wrapped bread roll in his hand, like it was an offering from another universe. "I know this isn't what you ordered," he said before I could say a word. But I really didn't want to walk away empty-handed. I stared at the roll, then back at him. "Wait, are you the delivery guy?" He nodded sheepishly. "Name's Jamie. There was a mix-up at the shop. They gave me the wrong bag. Yours went to someone across town and it's this." He held up the roll, round, golden, and still warm like it had just come out of the oven. "I know it's not pizza," he added, smiling nervously, "but it looked too good to waste. So I figured, maybe I could trade it for forgiveness." I laughed, half in confusion, half because it was the first time something unexpected had happened all week. "You're delivering carbs for karma now?" "Exactly." His eyes crinkled at the edges. "And trust me, this roll is kind of legendary. I should have closed the door. Said thanks, maybe left a bad review and gone back to pretending I was fine. But instead, I stepped aside and said, 'Fine. You've got 2 minutes to explain what's so legendary about a roll.'" He didn't leave for 3 hours. Turns out Jamie wasn't a full-time delivery guy. He was a culinary school dropout who filled in on weekends to cover rent. He talked with his hands, made lame puns, and had a habit of slipping into storytelling mode like he'd lived 100 lives. Somehow, I told him things I hadn't even said out loud to myself, like how silence had stopped feeling peaceful. How sometimes I ate alone just so I could pretend I wasn't waiting for anyone anymore. When I finally cut the roll open, the smell of garlic and rosemary filled the air. I broke it in half and handed him a piece. "To bad orders and better stories," I said. He smiled and toasted his half. "And to second chances in the shape of carbs." I don't know what made me keep his number. Maybe it was the way he listened, like every word mattered. Or how he didn't flinch when I admitted I'd cried more over burnt toast last week than I had over my ex. But a week later I texted him. "Me, hey. I was thinking about that roll. Want to bring another one? This time on purpose. Jamie, deal. But only if you promise not to fall in love with me over baked goods." Me, no promises. What started as a joke turned into Sunday dinners. Then midweek coffee runs. Then quiet nights spent in my kitchen, trying new recipes while soft music played in the background and his jacket hung on the back of my chair like it had always belonged there. Jamie didn't try to fix anything. He didn't need to. He just showed up. With cinnamon rolls on hard days. With jokes when the silence felt too heavy. With space when I needed it and warmth when I didn't know I did. But nothing good stays easy forever. One night, he showed up late. No roll. No smile. Just a folded envelope in his hand and a look in his eyes I hadn't seen before. "I got accepted," he said. "Culinary program. Paris." And just like that, everything warm in me went cold. By the time spring came, Jamie and I had memorized each other's kitchens. I knew exactly where he hid his cinnamon in the pantry. He knew how I liked my tea strong, no sugar, with a splash of almond milk. We'd stopped pretending this wasn't something real. But we still hadn't given it a name. Some nights he stayed over, falling asleep on my couch with a half-finished recipe open on the coffee table. Other times he vanished for days, claiming long shifts, new gigs, or needed thinking time. I didn't ask questions. Not at first. But the envelope with the Paris Culinary School logo sat on my bookshelf like a ticking clock. He hadn't brought it up again. Neither had I. And that silence? It started to echo louder than any words. One afternoon, I asked him casually, "What's the real reason you dropped out of culinary school the first time?" He was kneading dough at my kitchen counter, his hands dusted with flour, sleeves rolled up, face focused. He paused but didn't look up. I had a panic attack in the middle of my knife skills final, he said quietly. Froze. Couldn't move. My professor gave me a B- out of pity. I never went back. I blinked. You never told me that. Didn't think it mattered. It does. He finally looked at me. Why? You already like the part of me that delivers carbs and bad jokes. I laughed, but it didn't reach my chest. Because deep down, I wondered, did I really know him? Or just the version of himself he showed me, sweet, spontaneous, always halfway out the door? And did he know me? The girl still flinching at the memory of being left behind, again and again. A few days later, we had our first fight. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It started with him forgetting we had plans. A Tuesday night cooking demo he was supposed to lead at the community center. My idea, my people, my effort. He texted 2 hours late. Something came up. Rain check. I didn't respond. I canceled the demo. I went home and stared at the roll he'd left behind the night before, perfectly golden, crusty, untouched. When he came by the next morning, I opened the door with a flat look. You forgot, I said. I'm sorry. That's your go-to answer, isn't it? Sorry. It covers everything. Late calls, missed plans, conversations you never start. He sighed, stepping inside, but I didn't move to hug him. I'm scared, Lena, he said quietly. I've never stayed in one place this long. Never let myself care this much. I thought that letter, Paris, was a way out. But you're here. And I'm here. And suddenly, I'm stuck between wanting everything and running away from all of it. I felt a lump in my throat. I get it. I do. But I'm not a rest stop. You don't get to pause here and then take off when it suits you. His silence said more than words. For the next week, we didn't speak. He didn't text. I didn't ask. But every morning there was a new roll on my doorstep. Wrapped in wax paper. Still warm. A different flavor each time, fig and walnut, rosemary and sea salt, orange zest with a sugar glaze. It wasn't an apology. It was a breadcrumb trail. And God help me, I followed it. The last one came with a note. Meet me where this started. Please. I knew exactly where he meant. The night he didn't deliver pizza but showed up anyway, holding that dumb, perfect roll like it was a peace treaty. I found him outside the building, same red windbreaker, same eyes that always seemed to carry more than he said. He held something in his hands. Plane ticket. One way. But it wasn't for him. It was for me. The delivery boy didn't deliver pizza. But his role. This chapter dives deeper into emotional pressure, external conflict, and rising stakes as Jamie and Lena's bond is tested. The envelope was still sealed. A one-way ticket to Paris. My name printed clearly. No return flight. Jamie didn't say anything as I stared at it. Just waited like he was holding his breath, hoping I'd choose his heart over his habit of running. And I almost did. Until my phone buzzed. It was from Ben. My editor. My ex got your story. Beautiful work. You free to talk. I slipped the phone into my pocket, pulse suddenly louder than my thoughts. Jamie didn't ask. He didn't need to. He saw it in my eyes. What is it? He finally asked. Nothing, I lied. But it wasn't nothing. It never was when Ben reached out. 2 years ago I thought Ben was it. The kind of person who made you believe in forever until he walked out, without warning, without closure, without ever really looking back. He'd been my boss, my partner, and then, a stranger with the key to my past. He hadn't texted in nearly a year. Until now. And he wasn't just reaching out about my writing, he was circling back. I knew that tone. I knew that pull. What I didn't know was why I didn't instantly block his number. Jamie and I didn't talk about the ticket again. Days passed in strange quiet. We still met for tea. He still left rolls at my door. But there was a growing ache between us, like a song stuck on pause just before the chorus. Meanwhile, the community center called. They wanted to hire Jamie full-time to teach weekend cooking classes. He's magic with people, they said. Makes food feel like therapy. I told Jamie. He smiled. But it didn't reach his eyes. Because the Paris deadline was a week away. Then the second twist hit. I was working late, editing a story when my inbox pinged. Subject: freelance opportunity, Paris Chronicle, a travel magazine, one I dreamed of writing for, wanted me. 3 months. Full feature series. Gourmet culture. They'd seen my food pieces. Felt like fate. But it wasn't Jamie who sent the pitch. It was Ben. There was a message attached. Thought this might tempt you. Maybe we both needed time apart to realize what we gave up. My chest tightened. Was this a second chance? Or just another test? I closed the laptop. My hands were shaking. I needed air. That night I found Jamie sitting alone on the rooftop of his building, staring out at the skyline with a bread roll in his lap, untouched. "You didn't eat," I said softly. He looked over, half smiling. "Didn't feel right." I sat beside him. The air was cool, thick with the kind of silence that begs to be broken. "I got offered a job," I said. "Paris." "Yeah. Different offer, though." "Writing." He didn't flinch. Just nodded once. "Guess they figured out what I already knew." I looked at him. "That I'm good. That you're unforgettable." We sat there, both knowing the weight of what we weren't saying. It wasn't just about Paris. It was about fear, timing, trust, about whether two broken people could really build something whole together. Then he said, almost a whisper, "If I stay and you go, do we survive that?" I looked at him. "If I go," I asked, "and you don't fight for me, do we even have something to survive?" That hit him hard, because neither of us had ever asked the other to stay. The days blurred. Deadlines, decisions, dough rising and collapsing in my oven like it knew what was coming. The community center still called. Paris waited. And Jamie? Jamie became quieter. Quicker with his smiles, slower with his touch. It was like he was already half-packed. But so was I. Neither of us wanted to say it out loud. Because once we did, there'd be no pretending we weren't standing at the edge of a goodbye. The final Thursday before the ticket expired, he showed up with 2 boxes. One held rolls, his best batch yet. Buttery, dusted with herbs, still warm. The other was sealed heavier. He placed it on my kitchen counter and stepped back. "What's this?" I asked, frowning. Jamie ran a hand through his hair. "Everything I've written. Recipes, journals, ideas for a cookbook, stuff I never thought I'd share." I opened the box. His handwriting filled the pages. Notes scribbled in margins, sketches of bread designs, even snippets of poetry about food and about me. My throat closed. "You're giving this to me?" He nodded once. "It's yours. Even if I'm not." My chest tightened. "Don't do that. Don't make it sound like you've already decided." "Haven't I?" he said. "You got what you always wanted. Your big break." Ben's reaching out again. "You're incredible, Lena. You don't need me complicating things." I slammed the box shut. "I never asked you to leave. But you didn't ask me to stay either." The words landed like bricks. He turned to leave. I followed him to the door, my voice shaking. "You know, for someone who makes his living delivering things, you're really bad at showing up when it counts." He stopped. His eyes burned. "You think I haven't tried? Every damn day, I fight myself not to fall harder for you. Because I've already lost everything once. My dream, my family, my direction. I couldn't afford to lose you too." "Then fight harder," I snapped. "Because I'm here, Jamie. I've been here. But I'm not going to stand still while you keep walking away." Silence hung between us. Then he said it, softly but like it hurt to speak. "I love you, Lena. But love's not always enough, is it?" And then he walked out. I didn't sleep that night. I kept rereading his journal entries. One page in particular haunted me. "She smells like cardamom and ambition. She teaches me how to stay still. I don't know how to let her love me without running from it." By morning I knew. If I didn't stop him now, we'd never recover. I grabbed the journal, threw on the first jacket I found, and ran. He was already at the airport. I saw him through the glass at the security gate, backpack slung over his shoulder, eyes scanning the crowd one last time. I ran faster than I had in years, slamming against the barrier. "Jamie!" He turned, startled. I held up the journal, yelling through the glass. "You don't get to write the end without me." He rushed back. We stood on opposite sides of the glass, breath fogging, fingers touching through cold plastic. "Don't go," I whispered. "Not like this." Tears welled in his eyes. "But what if I mess this up?" I smiled through my own tears. "Then we mess it up together. And we figure it out. And you make me more of those fig rolls and I edit your cookbook and maybe we burn dinner and maybe it's not perfect. But it's ours." He stared at me. And then he backed away, from the security gate. We didn't leave the airport right away. We sat on the floor just outside the gate, sharing a cold cinnamon roll from Jamie's backpack while the world moved around us. People rushed by, flights announced, stories unfolding all around. But for once we felt like the quiet in the chaos. He kept glancing at me like I might vanish. I kept holding onto his hand like I was afraid he still might. I almost let you go, I said softly. Jamie looked over, eyes warm. I wasn't going to get on that plane. You sure about that? He smirked. 93%. We laughed. And for a second, everything felt simple. The next morning, the doorbell rang. Jamie was making French toast. I was dancing around the kitchen in his shirt, barefoot and grinning when I opened the door. And there he was. Ben. Looking as smug as ever. Leather jacket. Coffee in hand. Wow, he said, eyes flicking over me, then inside. So it's true. I swallowed. Why are you here? Thought we could talk, he said, stepping inside before I could stop him. You didn't respond to my email. I didn't think it needed a response. He smirked. It does now. Jamie walked out of the kitchen, flipping a dish towel over his shoulder. His easygoing energy changed the second he saw Ben. You're him, he said. And you must be the delivery guy, Ben replied coolly. Taste tester, actually, Jamie said with a slight edge. And Lena's boyfriend. Ben didn't blink. Cute. But Lena's under contract with our team. You can't just ghost us because of your boyfriend's ego. My heart dropped. What are you talking about? Ben handed me a printed contract. My signature was already on it. This was part of your freelance pitch. We advanced your first feature to an international partnership. He pointed to the line. Paris was never just a tryout, Lena. It's a rebrand. Your name. My editing. And a brand new rollout next quarter. I stared at the paper. This wasn't the job I thought I was walking away from. This was everything I'd worked for. My dream. In writing. In ink. And somehow Ben had made sure if I walked away now, I'd break the deal. Legally. Financially. Publicly. You knew I didn't agree to this, I said. Ben shrugged. You were emotional. Distracted. I protected your future. You forged my signature. Technically, he said, you signed it digitally after our last meeting. Consent is messy in emails. Jamie stepped forward, fists clenched. Get out. I will, Ben said, meeting his glare. But she'll come find me. Because love doesn't pay rent, Romeo. And ambition doesn't bake bread. He walked out. Silence filled the kitchen. Jamie looked at me, the fear already in his eyes. Tell me that's not binding. I couldn't. I didn't sleep again. Not because of Jamie. Because of the contract. I sat at the kitchen table while the rolls went cold. The edges of the paper curled under my palms, the ink too dark, too official. Every word was written to trap me. Every clause twisted into a version of a dream that didn't belong to me anymore. Jamie paced in the living room, silent, afraid to ask what I was thinking. Finally he did. Do you still want it? He asked. If Ben hadn't done what he did, would you still go? I looked up. I wanted to build something. Not have someone build it for me. What I wanted doesn't look like this anymore. But it could. If you fought for it. I laughed, bitter and tired. Funny. I thought I was fighting for us. He sat down across from me, his voice low. You are. But Lena, I've lived chasing something that didn't love me back. That city, those kitchens, those judges. And now you're staring down the same beast in a better dress. He reached for my hand. I want you to succeed. I just don't want to lose you to it. Tears stung my eyes. And if I walk away from it all, what if I regret it? What if one day I look at you and wonder what my name could have meant in lights? He didn't flinch. Then I'll remind you what it already means to me. I went to the meeting. Ben was already seated at the upscale downtown cafe. Coffee waiting, smugness back in full force. He gestured at the chair like nothing had happened. I sat slow and careful, pulled the contract from my bag. His eyes flickered. Don't say I never gave you anything, he said, grinning. I'm not here to thank you. His grin faltered. I slid the contract across the table. This is void. You signed it with falsified intent. I have proof. Ben scoffed. What proof? I smiled. An email thread where I told you I wasn't signing. You replying, don't worry, we'll work it out anyway. I sent it to a legal consultant. They'd love to take this on. He leaned back, jaw tight. You'd really burn this bridge? I stood. You already did. I'm just letting it collapse. Jamie and I stood in the center of the community center kitchen later that night. The one I'd helped build from the ground up. It still smelled like yeast and lavender. He was kneading dough, sleeves rolled, flour on his jaw. I hadn't seen him look more himself in weeks. I wrapped my arms around his waist from behind. I told him to shove the contract, I whispered. He stilled. You sure? I nodded. I'd rather start from scratch with you than build an empire on someone else's terms. He turned around, cupped my face in flour-dusted hands, and kissed me like the world had ended and been rebuilt in one breath. Months passed. We opened our own bakery, the Roll and Soul. Part cafe, part kitchen classroom, part heart. We taught kids how to bake, held couples classes, ran midnight rolls and wine nights for locals. And slowly, without the lights of Paris or the pull of headlines, we built something loud in its own quiet way. Sometimes I'd catch Jamie sketching new roll ideas in the margins of his journal, the one he never took back. Sometimes he'd catch me writing again, this time, not for someone else, but for the people who walked through our doors hungry for more than bread. One night, we sat on the rooftop above the bakery, legs tangled, the city humming below. I think we did it backwards, I said. Most people start big and scale down. Jamie smiled. We just started real. But it wasn't perfect. A blog post about our bakery went viral one day. Ben had rebranded and was now writing the local artisan trend, claiming influence on our work. The media came knocking again. This time we didn't answer the door. Because we were already home. The phone buzzed on the kitchen counter as the first light of dawn crept into the bakery. I stood there wiping down the counter, the scent of fresh bread filling the air. It was our morning ritual. It always felt surreal, like the quiet before the world caught up with us. I glanced at the phone screen, an email from the blog that had gone viral months ago. I didn't need to open it to know what it said. It was a request to meet. Again. But we were done with that chapter. Jamie walked in just as I put the phone down. He always had a way of filling the space, his presence bigger than the room. His smile was still the same, soft yet filled with a quiet confidence that had grown in him over time. I didn't even need to ask, I could see it in his eyes. He was ready for the next step, whatever it was. Big day? I asked, tilting my head as I looked up at him. He grinned. Every day with you is. He always knew how to make me smile. You know, I've been thinking, I said, pulling the last batch of rolls from the oven. Maybe it's time we stop looking backward. Time to make our own name, our own legacy. Not just in the kitchen, but everywhere. He raised an eyebrow. You mean start an empire? I laughed softly. Something like that. But more about making a difference. Something we can both be proud of on our terms. The next few months were a whirlwind of growth and change. We expanded the Roll and Soul into a community project, something more than just a bakery. We started partnering with local farmers, creating cooking classes that brought people together, and most importantly, using our platform to support others who were trying to build something from nothing. It wasn't easy. There were days we doubted ourselves, days the bills piled up, days when the world seemed bigger than us. But we never gave up. Because in those moments when we could have walked away, we chose to believe in the one thing that had never let us down, each other. The media buzz around the Roll and Soul never really stopped, but something changed. The press, once focused on sensationalism, began to focus on what we were doing, the lives we were touching, and the real impact we were making in our little corner of the world. They stopped asking about Paris, stopped asking about Ben and his influence, and started asking about our story. I found myself at peace with everything that had happened. I no longer feared the past. I didn't care about the reputation Ben tried to take credit for. Because in the end, we had built this with sweat, heart, and every ounce of belief in ourselves. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains and we closed up the bakery for the night, Jamie pulled me aside. Got a minute? He asked, his eyes serious but with that familiar twinkle. For you? Always. We walked outside, the cool air wrapping around us as we stood in front of the bakery. It had become our safe place, a symbol of everything we had overcome and everything we still dreamed of. I've been thinking, he said, taking my hand. We've come a long way from the kitchen, from the airport, from all of it. But there's one more step I think we need to take. I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What's that? He grinned. Well, I've got a couple of ideas. But first, I think I've earned the right to ask you one thing. I narrowed my eyes playfully. And what's that? Jamie dropped to one knee, his hands shaking just the slightest, but his gaze steady as he looked up at me. Lena, will you marry me? The world paused. My heart, which had once felt heavy and uncertain, now felt lighter than it had ever been. The past, Ben, the contract, the doubts had faded. What remained was Jamie, standing before me with all the love I had ever dreamed of. Yes, I whispered, my voice trembling. Yes. He stood, pulling me into a kiss, the kind of kiss that held promises for the future. A future that we would build together. As I walked into the bakery the next morning, my ring sparkling under the warm light, I couldn't help but feel grateful. Grateful for the journey, for the pain, for the lessons that led us here. It had been messy, but it had been real. And in the end, that was all that mattered. And so as the day unfolded, I realized that this was our beginning. Not just in the bakery, but in life. We weren't just baking rolls, we were baking a future. A future built on love, trust, and the kind of ambition that didn't leave us empty, but filled with purpose. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more heartfelt stories, and share this one with anyone who needs a reminder that love and hard work can change everything.